Hey guys, what's up? My name is Dom. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, movie content, and anything else in between because I like to do whatever I want on this channel, and tonight's going to be bookish content. Tonight we are going to be discussing my top 5 reads of 2021. I read a total of 55 books this year. It was a little difficult choosing my favorites just because there was a lot going on this year and I read just widely different stories, but I chose my 5 and we're going to get started. At number 5, we have The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This book takes place in a house called Hill House. A man suspects that it is haunted, so he invites people to come and live in the house with him and to search out any ghosts or other paranormal experiences. 3 people agree to come, and they all become friends, and it's their lives living within this house. Even though it's that man that I mentioned who starts it, the story really is more so in a woman's point of view, a woman named Eleanor. I ended up rating this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was my first time ever reading something by Shirley Jackson, and then she really does have a way with her writing. It flowed very well. One of my favorite aspects of the book is when the 4 friends would just banter together and they would talk about these like made up stories, these make-believes. They would play as adults, they would play make-believe. Shirley Jackson kind of had my emotions in a chokehold. When it came to those make-believe stories, I felt comforted, I felt safe, I felt warm, I felt like I was getting a big hug, and I didn't feel scared. But then she just had a way of twisting the story to make it like super creepy. So at one moment you feel like you're right there with these 4 friends, and then she just twists it so then you don't know if that hand that Eleanor touched was actually there or not. And it like spooked me, just the way she was able to control my emotions like that. I just usually don't get that from books. I get it from horror movies. I don't get it a lot from horror books though, but Shirley Jackson did it. And it leading into those horror aspects, because I said, like, is the hand that Eleanor touched real or not? Those horror aspects, I like to describe this book as ambiguous, because minor spoiler, but we actually never find out whether or not Hill House is actually haunted. Shirley Jackson drops hints here and there, but it's never explicitly said. We see Eleanor's descent into madness, which is so brilliantly done. Like in the beginning of the book, I was like cheering her on. I'm like, yes, you're in your 30s, get that independence. But by the end of the book, I was questioning, like, Eleanor, are you okay? The thing you're claiming to see, did that actually happen or no? Was that in your head? This book is mostly in Eleanor's point of view. It's third person, but it's told through Eleanor. And I would describe Eleanor as an unreliable narrator, because you don't know if the events of this book, you don't know if they're actually happening or if it's all in Eleanor's head. Because again, Shirley Jackson never explicitly tells you. You have to make these guesses by yourself. And therefore, since we can't really trust Eleanor's mind or her narration, therefore you kind of really can't trust the other characters, because you don't know if they're actually being shitty or not. Because near the end of the book, that was Eleanor's claim. She was claiming that these people were just being mean to her, especially Theo. But it's like, are they? I don't know. And like the ambiguity is actually kind of what makes this book so creepy. I don't know who to trust anymore, you know? And like I said, like Eleanor's descent into madness is one of the best downward spirals I've ever read in a book. I knew something was going to happen to Eleanor, but then when it happened, I was still shocked. And I didn't know what to do. My jaw dropped. For a second, I didn't know how to feel. I was like distraught. And then like the final pages of the book, when Shirley Jackson wraps it up, it just left me in a mood of like discomfort. I feel like this book is just the epitome of your brain playing tricks on you, and it was so good. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. But yeah, the ambiguity, the fact that we just don't know what the hell's going on, is what made this one of my top 5 books of the year. At number 4, we don't have a single book. I'm just gonna make it the whole series. But at number 4, we have Ghoul Re by Sui Ishida. This is kind of hard to talk about because this is a whole like sequel series to another series. I do have the original like up here. I'm not gonna bring it down because that's a lot of books to bring down. It takes place in a universe where Tokyo is run amok by these things called ghouls. And then one day our main character Kaneki goes on a date. It goes wrong, he has an organ transplant, and now he is half human and half ghoul. And there's like just a lot of mental anguish going on because since he was a human, he understands the fear that humans feel, but now that he is living life as a ghoul, he also understands how the ghouls feel. So his main goal is to one day live in the world where ghouls and humans can coexist. I do like this series less than the original. As it goes on, I can definitely see Suyashida's burnout, but it didn't really deter my enjoyment. It's still some of the most amazing, like, psychoanalysis of a character I've ever seen in a story. Kaneki goes through, like, a lot, and no matter, like, which era he's in, because he goes through a lot of different, like, literally changes his identity. He goes through a lot of different identities, but no matter which like era he's in, he's still the same Kaneki. He's still the guy who cares and has this one goal in mind. Some critiques I do have is that the pacing is off at times. Like, the discrepancy in pacing became very obvious when he was switching over to the next arc, because the beginning of arcs was fine. It was always like those last few parts of the arc where he got a little got a little off. But despite that major critique I do have, I mean, this is still like one of my top 5 reads of the year, just because I do hold the series close to my heart. So when it comes to like an objective review, I'm probably not the person to go to. I absolutely adore these characters. I wish I was smart enough to write a psychoanalysis like this. It's just interesting seeing this character who, he does a lot, Kaneki does a lot of good, but sometimes he does some bad things, and despite the bad things he does, like, Suyashida still writes him in a way where I could still love Kaneki with all my heart. The art in Tokyo Ghoul Re, I adore. I think the art itself is a lot better than the first series, especially those last few chapters, and the fight scene those last few chapters. And then I think what I find the most interesting about this series is that, and again, this is kind of a spoiler, but the end of the series, like, world peace wasn't necessarily achieved, but Kaneki's goals were. And the ending just gave me major comfort, just because Kaneki went through so much in the series. I was really scared it was going to be, like, a very sad ending. I was content with the ending. That's all I wanted. As long as I'm content, it's fine. And this was a great, you know, Tokyo Ghoul was a great ride to go through. I think it took me a year and a half to get through both the first series and Re. I read the manga while Olivia Savannah over at Olivia's Catastrophe was watching the anime, so it was really fun discussing with her as well and fangirling. And the Tokyo Ghoul Era 2.0 is coming, because I know she just bought the manga, so she's going to be reading the manga whenever she does. But I want to react to the anime, just because I want to see, I mean, I do want to watch the anime, but I just want to react to it just because of the book-to-movie adaptations that I do. So that's going to be really fun, so look out for that. But yeah, Tokyo Ghoul Re. Damn, I was sad when I finished it, because I was like, what the fuck, what else am I going to do in my life now that Tokyo Ghoul is over? At number 3, we have I Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai. This is Malala's memoir about her time living in Pakistan during the rise of the Taliban. I first heard of Malala because I remember seeing on the news about when she got shot. She was standing up for girls in Pakistan to have an education during the rise of the Taliban, just because the Taliban, they did not want girls going to school, so she stood up to that, and in retaliation, the Taliban shot her. This was a very eye-opening memoir. She talked about a lot of things I wasn't really expecting her to talk about. I was expecting this book to be more so focused on when she got shot. This book actually details her life from when she was born up until when she moved to England. And I was not expecting to read about that, but I vastly enjoyed it because I feel like it gave more background to understand why she was fighting for these causes. Because what I didn't know, so I thought the shooting is what made her famous, just because of how young we were. If I remember correctly, I think she's only a month older than I am. So just because of how young I was and how young we were when this happened, I was always under the impression she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But what actually happened was her dad was a huge advocate as well, and his name was already out in the Pakistani news and media. So what happened with her is that she would follow in her dad's footsteps, and at a very young age, like 10, 11 years old, she would go on the news and speak about why girls deserve an education under the Taliban as well. And, the Taliban had her name. The shooting wasn't an accident or anything. She was their target. One thing I learned is how the Pakistanis actually felt during the Taliban. Because I feel like the American media always portrays it one way. But, actually reading it from a Pakistani's point of view was eye-opening. I mean, obviously, Malala disapproved of the Taliban, but it was interesting reading it in a Pakistani's point of view for once. And I wasn't just listening to what an American news anchor was telling me. Hearing her opinion on 9/11 was interesting, and just how other Pakistanis felt during that time. how Pakistanis actually felt when Osama bin Laden was dead, because I know, well, I didn't know, I learned that in Pakistan there was actually kind of a controversy with that. And it was also just nice reading about her life outside of the politics too, just to get to know her, not only as like a spokesperson, but just to know her as a person. When she was describing some of these scary moments in her life, like, I was scared too, like, I didn't know what was gonna happen. Like, even though I know the outcome, the way she described it, like, I could feel her fear, her anger, whatever emotion she was feeling at the time in the moment, and like, I was scared with her. So this was a very interesting read, and I highly recommend this book. So number 2, we have Troublemaker, Surviving Hollywood and Scientology by Leah Remini. Leah Remini is an actress. She is most famous for the sitcom King of Queens, and this is her memoir of surviving Hollywood, but also being part of the Church of Scientology. Now, I initially read this book because I love reading about cults. Reading about cults is a guilty pleasure of mine. It's not because I want to join a cult or like want to start a cult by any means. I love learning about the psychology of cults, like the psychology of cult leaders, but then the psychology of the members themselves and like what would make someone want to join them. I just find it so fascinating. So this book has been on my radar for a while just because Leah Remini is very outspoken. Ever since leaving the church, it's been her like life's mission to call out the bullshit that it is. I consider Scientology a cult, which is not an unpopular opinion. I know a lot of people do. So when I saw the audiobook available at the library, I went ahead and picked it up. And boy, let me tell you, for a while, this was the best book I read in 2021 until later. But this was a wild ride. So one of the reasons I love this book so much is because without thinking critically, it's just the gossip I need. I loved learning about the cult itself, but I also loved learning about the gossip about Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise, in Remini's point of view, so like granted this is a very biased point of view, but Tom Cruise is fucking weird. And then just besides the Scientology stuff, like learning about Hollywood was really cool. I really liked learning about her time on King of Queens because she didn't really have a lot of negative things to say about it. Like those sections were really wholesome, and I think it like balanced out the bad shit she would talk about when it came to the Church of Scientology and all that like weird shit with Tom Cruise. Gossip aside, when it comes to the actual writing style, I don't know if Leah Remini actually wrote this. I don't know if it was, I can't tell if it was ghostwritten. But either way, what I find interesting about the narration is that Leah Remini, she knew when she could crack a joke. She knew when she could be sarcastic. She knew when she could be mean. But then she also knew when she had to be serious. And I'm glad like a book with such heavy subject matter is funny at times. I felt like I could take a breather when those parts came up. I did listen to this on audiobook, so I will admit like a huge part of my enjoyment of this book was her narration, because she is the narrator of the audiobook. And it helps that she's an actress, because when she read it, she wasn't just reading it, like she was acting out those words that she wrote. So I don't know if that like really counts towards like a critique, a commentary, whatever, just because yeah, admittedly the way someone reads a book, like a tone could really affect how the words are interpreted. And I think that's all I have to say about this book. I feel like there's more, but I had like a grand time reading this. And I know I went into this book with a bias because I'm very biased towards, towards cults. I went into this book thinking Scientology was a cult, and this book confirmed my biases. So take that as you will. Finally, we get to my ultimate favorite book of 2021, and that is a manga. That's the other manga that I read, and that would be Uzumaki by Junji Ito. Uzumaki means spiral in Japanese, and this takes place in a town that is overtaken by the pattern of spirals. So Junji Ito is well known for his horror manga, so this is a horror story. I read this around Halloween, and it was the perfect Halloween read because it freaked me out. I did not think spirals were going to scare me, but they did. I was expecting it to be one linear story. It's not really a linear plot line. Like it's like actually kind of episodic. Like each chapter is its own like little story within this town. And pardon my pun here, but it was just fascinating watching this town spiral into the madness that it became. One of the ways it's made it scary is the art style. Some of this artwork sent a chill up my spine. If they're not spoiler enough, I'll try to find some panels online and like stick them on the screen just so you can get an idea for Junji Ito's art. He does have a very recognizable art style. This is my first ever Ito work, but I'm so used to people talking about it on the internet that even if you took away like speech bubbles, like I could show me a panel and I'll know it's Junji Ito. Like even without telling me the title of the book, like I will know. And one of the most fascinating things about this book was just nothing gets better for these people. like, it gets worse as the story goes on. You want to feel a sense of hope, but like I just felt this massive sense of dread the more I read the book, and I just had this deep feeling nothing was gonna get solved. And that leads me to the ending. The ending's what made this book so fascinating to me. When I initially read it, I was actually kind of pissed off because, spoiler, like, issues don't get solved. It's not the ending I initially wanted. Like, I wanted a concise ending. I wanted answers. We get some answers, but just not the answers you want. And so initially, when I didn't have the answers I wanted, I was kind of pissed, but I set the book down. I didn't rate it right away because I wanted to think about it. I'm like, what was Ito's point of not answering my questions? Like, the more I thought about it, the more creeped out I got, and realized that ambiguity at the end is what Junji Ito was going for, because his characters are uncomfortable. So therefore, he doesn't want you to be comfortable. He wants you as a reader to be freaked out. He wants you to be uncomfortable. And you know what? It worked. I was, despite not getting my answers, I was very uncomfortable at the end. I felt like I spiraled into madness with our characters, despite how uncomfortable I was and skeeved out and scared, creeped out, freaked out. 5 out of 5 stars, because I felt what he wanted me to feel. And it's getting an anime. I think the anime comes out this year, October of 2022. This was a good read. This was my first Junji Ito work, and it was a great first.
Hey guys, so it looks like my closing clip actually got corrupted when I was uploading this, so I'm just gonna record this to give you my final thoughts here. When it comes to Uzumaki, I do want to reiterate, I did give it 5 out of 5 stars. Very good. I also want one of the last panels tattooed on my body, so that's how you know I love it. But moving on, those were my best reads of 2021. I had a pretty good reading year, so I'm very satisfied with the choices I picked. My next video will be the worst reads. Let me know down below what your best reads were. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. And without further ado, I'm going to peace out, and I'll see you guys later. Ciao a tutti.